What if I told you that every time you try to be authentic in seduction, you're giving control to the other person? By the end of this video, you'll be able to identify the power plays behind any romantic interaction and respond strategically. Every seduction is a power game disguised as romance, where those who understand the rules control the outcome. This applies from the first glance to the final conquest. Every gesture, every word, every pause has strategic weight. We're not talking about crude manipulation, but understanding that attraction is influence, and influence is power. When you ignore this reality, you pay a high price. You become hostage to the other person's reactions. You misread signals. You accelerate when you should brake. You reveal cards when you should maintain mystery. The result is always the same. You lose control of the dynamic. Because the truth is this: seduction is about right timing, reading signals, and strategic positioning. Those who master these elements decide when to advance, when to retreat, when to intensify, and when to disappear. You know that situation where someone shows interest in you, and your first reaction is to be completely transparent about what you feel. The dynamic changes instantly. What was reciprocity becomes distance. What was interest becomes politeness. This happens because you broke a fundamental law. Who pursues loses, who attracts wins. Love can be genuine, but seduction is always strategic. You need to understand there's a mistake most people make without realizing, and this mistake destroys your chances before they even begin. When someone sparks your interest, the instinctive reaction is to show who you are completely. Talk about your hobbies, your ambitions, your fears, your experiences. You believe transparency creates connection, but that's a move from someone who doesn't understand power. Observe a common situation at a party. You meet someone attractive, the conversation flows well, and within minutes you've already revealed your profession, your travel plans, your opinion on relationships. You feel like you're creating intimacy. But notice what happens from the other perspective. The person listens to you, smiles, shows interest, however reveals very little about themselves, asks questions about you but deflects when questioned, maintains certain mystery about their intentions. The result is you leave the interaction thinking about them, while they leave knowing everything about you. Most people make this mistake because they confuse intimacy with exposure. They think sharing information creates closeness. Actually, it creates predictability, and predictability kills fascination. The first consequence is loss of mystery. When someone knows your cards, they lose interest in playing. There's nothing left to discover, nothing to conquer. You become known too well too soon. The second consequence is dynamic reversal. Who reveals less becomes the prize to be conquered. Who reveals more becomes the desperate pursuer. This reversal is fatal because whoever pursues automatically loses value. You must know people who are naturally magnetic. They don't try to impress by listing qualities. They make you discover gradually what's interesting about them. They leave gaps for your imagination to fill. And there's a specific psychological mechanism behind this that Nietzsche identified, studying how great personalities develop magnetic presence. Who understands the rules of attraction controls the outcome. The first principle Nietzsche discovered was that magnetic people don't try to impress. It means completely inhabiting your own energy, without trying to mold yourself to please. The difference is subtle but crucial. Most people use a social mask in seduction. They try to be funnier, more interesting, more charming than they really are. Nietzsche realized this creates the opposite effect. It generates a sense of falseness that people unconsciously pick up. There's someone in your life who has natural magnetic presence. This person doesn't try to get attention, doesn't force conversations, doesn't exaggerate reactions. They simply are present completely, creating a gravitational field around them. But attention, presence doesn't mean passivity. It means being completely engaged in the moment, without a hidden conquest agenda. When you talk, you truly listen. When you smile, it's because something really amuses you. When you're interested, it's because you genuinely find the person fascinating. The practical application is simple but challenging. Before any interaction, stop and connect with who you really are in that moment, not with who you think you should be to conquer someone. Imagine being in a conversation without trying to steer it anywhere, without a mental script of how to impress, just honestly responding to what emerges. This creates a presence that people feel but can't explain. Nietzsche discovered this presence generates unconscious attraction because it's true. There's nothing to unmask, nothing to distrust, but presence without right timing becomes waste. Who masters magnetic presence discovers this alone isn't enough. There's something even more decisive: knowing exactly when to use this presence for maximum impact. Right timing is everything in seduction. You can have the best conversation in the world, but if you try to intensify at the wrong moment, you destroy the magic instantly. Most people force the moments. They see a positive signal and accelerate immediately. They feel connection and want to advance right away. This creates pressure the other person feels and instinctively resists. There are 3 clear signals that it's time to act. First, the person stops looking around and concentrates all attention on you. Second, they start mirroring your gestures without realizing. Third, a natural pause emerges in the conversation where you look at each other without rushing to speak. You've lived through moments like this, conversations where you felt there was a window of opportunity but hesitated or missed the moment. After this window closes, trying to force becomes desperation. The difference between those who seduce well and those who struggle for attention lies in this moment reading. Who masters this doesn't need to try so hard because they act when resistance is low, but attention, right timing doesn't just mean when to advance. It also means when to maintain distance, when to strategically retreat, when to temporarily disappear. For example, when someone is clearly interested in you, the obvious move is to intensify. The smart move sometimes is to create a little scarcity. This reverses the dynamic and makes the person invest more energy in conquering you. The secret lies in reading the other person's level of emotional investment. If they're more invested than you can pull back a little. If you're more invested, you need to balance by increasing your perceived value. This isn't calculated coldness. It's understanding that attraction works like a dance where rhythm matters as much as the steps. When you master this moment reading, seduction stops being struggle and becomes natural flow with emerging opportunities. Now you'll discover how to transform this understanding into specific actions that work in any situation. Continue to see the practical protocol that unites presence and perfect timing. Who understands the rules of the attraction game now needs to know how to apply in practice. I'll give you 4 specific actions that work when you combine magnetic presence with perfect timing. First action, strategic pause. When someone asks a question about you, stop for 2 seconds before responding. Not from shyness, but by conscious choice. This creates weight in your words and shows you think before revealing yourself. Trigger to use whenever they ask something personal. Execution, count to 2 mentally, then respond directly but incompletely. Limit, never use this on simple questions like, "Where are you from?" Success signal, the person pays more attention to your answer. Error signal, if they repeat the question, you overdid the pause. Second action, selective mirroring. Copy a specific gesture the person makes, but only when they show genuine interest in you. Never mirror everything like a robot. Trigger, when they lean in your direction or touch their own hair. Execution, mirror the same gesture 5 seconds later. Limit, only 1 gesture per conversation. Success signal, they smile unconsciously. Error signal, they stop making that gesture. Third action, subtle redirection. When someone compliments you directly, don't accept or reject. Redirect focus to something you both share in that moment. Trigger, when receiving any compliment about appearance or personality. Execution, interesting that you notice that. You seem like someone who pays attention to details, and shift to observe something in the environment. Limit, use only when the compliment is genuine. Success signal, the person smiles and feels seen. Error signal, they insist on the original compliment. Fourth action, calculated absence. When the conversation is at its peak and you're both clearly connected, find a legitimate reason to step away for a few minutes. Trigger, moment of highest emotional connection. Execution, I need to talk to a friend quickly, I'll be right back. Limit, maximum 10 minutes away. Success signal, when you return they welcome you with a relieved smile. Error signal, they're animatedly talking to someone else. These actions create a dynamic where you maintain control without being controlling. But before you go out using this everywhere, you need to understand the risks and how to avoid it becoming toxic manipulation. Who masters seduction strategies needs to know when to use and when to stop. I'll neutralize the 3 most common doubts and show the risks that can ruin everything. First objection, isn't this manipulation? Direct answer, it's only manipulation if you use it to harm someone. If the person also enjoys and benefits from the interaction, you're creating a dance, not a scam. Simple criterion, if you'd be comfortable knowing the other person is using the same techniques with you, then you're on the right path. If not, stop immediately. Second objection, what if the person discovers I'm being strategic? The truth is, we're all strategic all the time. The difference is, some do it consciously, others by instinct. There's no problem being intentional about creating attraction. Application criterion: use these techniques to amplify who you really are, never to create a false persona. If you're lying about who you are, the problem isn't the strategy, it's the dishonesty. Third objection: does this really work, or is it just theory? It works because it's based on how attraction really happens at the unconscious level. But it requires practice and adaptation to your personality. Test criterion: try one technique at a time in pressure-free situations. If you force all at once, you'll seem robotic. Now the mandatory risks. First, operational risk: becoming an actor instead of being yourself. This happens when you get so focused on techniques you forget to be truly present. Prevention: before any interaction, remember techniques serve to amplify your natural presence, not replace your personality. Second, ethical risk: using this to manipulate vulnerable people or those in positions of lesser power. This transforms seduction into predation. Prevention: only use with people who are in equal conditions of choice. If someone is drunk, emotionally fragile, or in a position of dependency, these techniques are forbidden. Always remember, the goal is to create genuine connection through conscious strategy, not exploit others' weaknesses. Who decides when to use is the criterion, not the opportunity. If your conscience hesitates, don't use. Now I'll show you how this fundamentally changes who you become and how to maintain this new posture. Who understands that seduction is power disguised as romance now goes through a fundamental identity change. You stop being someone who waits for attraction to happen and become someone who cultivates attraction consciously. The difference between these two identities is enormous. The old identity lives in hope. Hope's chemistry emerges. Praise the person notices your qualities, expects authenticity to be enough. The new identity operates with clarity, recognizes signals before they become obvious, acts at precise moments, consciously cultivates favorable dynamics. This change happens when you stop asking, "Do they like me?" and start asking, "What move makes most sense now?" This focus shift transforms everything. 3 automatic behaviors emerge after this transformation. First, you naturally create space for people to discover you instead of exposing yourself completely. Second, you read power dynamics in any social interaction. Third, you keep your energy centered on yourself, not dispersed trying to please. What ceases to exist is constant anxiety about others' approval. You stop interpreting every gesture as a definitive signal. Stop accelerating when you should wait. Stop pursuing when you should attract. Now, the consolidation ritual. Every time you meet someone who sparks your interest, before any move, ask yourself mentally, what would Machiavelli do here? This simple question instantly connects you with strategic mentality. The meaning of this ritual is remembering you have choice about how to respond. You don't need to react impulsively. You can consciously choose what energy to project. Execute this ritual for a week in all social interactions. You'll notice how it naturally changes your posture. The person you become after this no longer needs to try impressing anyone. Your presence speaks for itself. People sense there's something different about you, but can't explain exactly what. You become someone who sparks natural curiosity because you master the art of revealing yourself strategically. This isn't manipulation, it's mastery. Now you've seen a bit of what makes this approach so powerful. Click the video on screen. You'll discover the deepest secrets Machiavelli used to read people instantly. Click now on the video on screen.